Welcome everybody to the 2025 Axiom Accountability webinar. I'm Ed Cunningham, the Unaware Product Manager, and I'm joined with by Jeremy Wagner, an Unaware Product Manager, and Penny Kimbrough from Region 10, supporting Axiom for everybody. This meeting is pre-recorded. You can, of course, view all of our content on YouTube. So today we're going to talk briefly about what Axiom is, as just a refresher. We're going to review updates from 2025. We have a lot of exciting updates for 2025 for the user experience. And we're going to share some screenshots, especially focusing on how those updates impact how you'll analyze the different domains for accountability. So let's start with what is Axiom.
So Axiom is a tool used to give you a projection. It is not meant to give you a rating, but it will allow you to see some insights into your data. You'll be able to look at each of the domains and determine which kids are affecting those domains. And you're going to be able to easily create monitor groups to monitor those kids. And you're going to be able to see the student level data that is affecting your accountability. Lots of principals, lots of administrators really like the overall at a glance picture of how their campus is performing. And it's great for them to be able to create monitor groups, monitor their progress, and track their growth over time.
And keep in mind, when looking at Axiom versus aware reporting, they're two different things with very different purposes. So you might use Axiom for those projections, but you might jump into aware and look at quick views to get some very granular kind of information about your students. Axiom does have the student list table where you can get pretty granular and you can compare across quick views. But remember, Axiom and aware are only as good as the data that you actually have imported into them. So make sure everything's up to date. Within both, you actually have the ability to utilize and create monitor groups, but aware is where you're going to be looking at those monitor groups for specific kind of monitor group data analysis. And then finally, while Axiom has the ability for you to look at students for House Bill 1416, student forms is where the real power in aware is for looking at and documenting those 1416 needs.
Keep in mind that Axiom and Aware are not sources for your formal accountability ratings. Only the agency, only TEA can assign campus and district ratings and distinctions. So we're using the word projection very deliberately here. Axiom is for projections. We use the accountability manual for the TEA website, and for all questions about accountability calculations and the minutia of the determinations of the different scoring, you're definitely going to want to reference the 2025 manual. That's what we used, and so we refer you to that. But only TEA assigns ratings. Please do not share Axiom numbers with your formal school board presentations, with your community meetings. That's what TEA's reports are for. And there's deadlines for that for TEA reports. Axiom is so you can kind of get sort of a start for your summer planning before those numbers come in. So we're aiming to have the Axiom updates fully available to you by early June, as the EOC files are being delivered to Teal. We are actually updating along the way the entire time. So as you receive your files for, like, say, TELPS and things like that that come out before early June through May, just import those directly into Aware like you always have. Please remember that we do not use for Axiom the early files, those CSV files that often come out for STAR that have a lot of results, but they don't have the full battery of fields and information that we need for calculating accountability projections. Those files will import into Aware just fine, but once you start importing in the preliminary files, that TXT file that follows the official 2025 STAR formats, and then the final files that replace those, which is the exact same format, that's what Axiom uses. Of course, file management in Axiom is pretty handy and will show you what you've imported so you can kind of audit to see if you're missing anything. But that's our timeline for delivery. Jeremy's going to talk a little bit through the updates. This is kind of cool.
All right. So when looking at Axiom, the biggest thing you'll notice when you hop in is that we've actually updated the user interface. If you've been in Axiom before, it was in an older code base and it didn't match a lot of the user experiences that we have in other parts of Aware and other parts of our platform. And so we've updated it so it's a little more familiar to you if you're very familiar with how to navigate things in Aware. When we made these UI changes, we went with a core principle of trying to maintain functionality, but have that more familiar pattern. And one of the biggest things that I think you're going to see is like a quality of life improvement is there's going to be a much easier way for you to select your schools and hold on to that school selection throughout without having to start all the way over. You'll see that as we go through some of the screenshots and when we preview some of the domains here in just a little bit. And we'll talk about how that kind of works, but it's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of go back and forth between the various domains and hold on to a school or district view as you make changes and explore all throughout. We've also enhanced filters for the student list. If you recall, the student list before was kind of one mass drop down and it was a jumbled kind of collection of things that you had to select. Whereas now the filters for the student list all, work and function a lot more like they do in quick views as you're looking for an assessment to analyze data. And we've also, through from last year to this year, done quite a bit of updates in terms of getting general calculation errors fixed. We partnered with some school districts to actually get those kind of worked out. They shared some of their data with us from TEA, and we're much closer in our calculations than we've ever been in the past. And so we're looking forward to you seeing all of those. And then just to highlight what changed in terms of accountability, everything's pretty much the same as last year with one exception. The 2025 rules anticipated a change in the EL proficiency calculation in domain 3, but they actually reversed that and said we're going to hold on to the way we calculated it in 24 instead of making that change in 25. And then we can expect that change to happen in 26. And so in general, the calculations work pretty much the same, just with new years looking for current year versus prior year. So when you hop into Axiom, you'll of course get first into the main page where you're going to see your overall domain projections. That's each of those four circles where you have the overall score and then each of the domains separated out. To access each of the different domains, just click on the header title where it says student achievement, school progress, or closing the gaps, and it'll take you to the domain level data that you're looking for. And I mentioned just a second ago, right at the top, you have that drop down that says district. That's where you're going to select whether you want a district view or a specific campus view. And as you make those selections, it's going to hold on to that as you navigate. So you don't have to go back to the left navigation and start all over, or at any time, just hit that top drop down. Say you're in the middle of domain 3, closing the gaps, and you want to jump from your high school to your elementary, you can do that in the domain without having to start all the way completely over. So make sure you leverage that. You also notice on the main page, one of the biggest changes is there used to be a whole lot of settings down at the bottom. So Ed, you can go ahead and go to the next one. Those settings, those settings down at the bottom are now in an overflow menu right next to the district and campus selector. And so you'll see familiar buttons just in a new location where you can view the student list. You can go into your configure school settings. So you can check all of your school settings, make sure they're allocated correctly. You can view your data files and recalculate if necessary. And then you can even hide the Axiom just interface in general from school leaders. It's worded a little bit differently, and that button is actually dynamic. When you see it now, I hit hide report from school leaders, it'll hide it. And then it'll say show report to school leaders. And if you click it, it'll show it. So just keep in mind that button is dynamic, and whatever it says is what it's going to do if you click it. So when you get into configuring your schools and you look at the settings there, you can see, of course, the names of your schools off to the left. And then it's really important for you to ensure that your type of school is set appropriately. Because as you may be familiar, within the actual accountability rules, each type of school has a different set of rules that they follow where they may use CCMR, they may not, they use star different weights, etc. So make sure those are set correctly. Next, you have your first and second groups that you need to identify manually here. Whereas later we look at some high focus groups, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute, and then ensure that your economically disadvantaged percentage and your enrollment is set correctly. These numbers may be preset as you jump in here, but you want to verify those and just update them to what you know to be the most correct data. Going a little bit deeper, if you click into the spot where you, on that far right side of the previous screen, you can actually add more information. This is where we get a lot of the domain 1 and 3 components for like CCMR, your graduation rates, your federal where you get the 4-year federal graduation rate and your college and career military readiness numbers. Keep in mind these screenshots are showing 23 and 24. They will be updated to the 24 and 25. But this is where you can drop all those percentages in to get those CCMR calculations working correctly. When we look specifically at the student list table, you click that overflow menu and you can get to the view the student list. You get to go beyond accountability and actually look at the students behind the numbers, where you have a new set of filters that can help you really narrow in on, hey, this is a particular kind of group I really want to look at, or this is a particular kind of group, or this is the ones that I wanted to have made this particular accountability or achievement level, and then this is the one I wanted to have this performance level, and just get super granular with your students and how you look at that. You also have the domain summary report. It's a report, if you've been in Axiom before, you're all very familiar with, but you access that with that second button from the top there. It basically shows all your schools in one simple report with their numbers. And then for House Bill 1416, this used to be a setting down at the bottom. It is actually now a part of the student it's now actually part of the student list table. So when you go into the student list table, there's going to be a button towards the top right that says Engage to House Bill 1416 filters. And so as you look into that, keep in mind when you click that Engage the HB 1416 filters, it's going to filter based on what you've already filtered. So if you want an entire district list of your HB 1416, make sure you're at the district view and all your filters are cleared and then hit it. Or if you want a 1416 subset of a group of kids that you have filtered to specifically, then you can use that filter and refine that list even further. When you jump into the student list table or the student test list, you'll notice here the filters I was talking about before and the new way that they kind of work and behave. One of the exciting new features we've added is a more dynamic search, where you can actually in that search box type in the student's name or the name of a test, or even potentially a demographic or the student's ID, and it will search and find within that entire student list exactly what you're looking for. And then you have filters that behave and work just like they do in it's like the quick views table, where I can look at performance levels, which I have specifically boxed out here. And you can look at, say, hey, I want to know how many kids had approaches on this particular test last year, and now we're at masters this year. Then you have your school filters, your demographic filters, and finally others where I have highlighted specifically your high focus, where we take the data in the system and we try to attempt to calculate which students apply with the high focus group. And so I wanted to call that one out here. You can also see, like with the other filters under others, some of the things that you might have found as individual filters within the previous UI. So make sure you click that others and you can see that D1 inclusion, the score code, etc. And then finally, with that domain summary report, I highlighted that a second ago, but this is just a one-stop shop for you to get just a pass of all of the numbers for your district and your campuses in one view. And of course, we have the ability for you to export that as a CSV.
All right, so thank you, Jeremy, for running through the changes. I'm excited about a lot of those UX changes. I've played around in it, and they are very much more friendly for hopping around for the different types of tasks that you kind of think of as you're exploring Axiom. So I really appreciate those changes. I want to go ahead and run through some screenshots of each of the domains just so you can get a little bit more familiarity with what these UX changes will look like in action. So here's a reminder of the main page with Julian as a district user. Up there at the district, I have a little drop down where I can pick each of the campuses that I want to pick. And I can also, as Jeremy said, I can dive into any of the domains, student achievement, school progress, closing the gaps from here at the district or at each of the campus levels. When you go into the student achievement domain, domain 1, you'll notice the tabs going across the top: summary, star performance, graduation, score, detailed breakdown. Rather than the endless scrolling page that we had before, now we have sort of concise information bit by bit that's a little bit more digestible. So here we are looking at the summary data table, pretty straightforward for star performance. This is fueled by those data files I was talking about. Please make sure you have your ACT and SAT files loaded in. Please make sure you have requested data for students who were new to your district last year, so the SDR information from previous years. All of your data that you have in Aware is used for calculating accountability, and if we're missing anything, then we're not able to use those students. Um, Here's your star performance table. You can toggle between percent or number. That way, it's not just a crowded field of numbers. You can actually look at it as percentages or as counts, which is pretty cool. Here's a score detailed breakdown. As you can see, we have the schools listed here, and we also have the student test list. You see the arrow there. I can select any of those schools, and they act as filters to take me straight to the student test list for that school. So that's pretty cool. And then, as Jeremy showed you, you can engage the filters at the student test list to further explore these results. Here's the school progress domain. We've got both A and B represented in the summary. And then you can go to domain 2A and domain 2B in the tabs across the top. These numbers are clickable, so you can actually click these numbers and go to the students behind them, which is incredibly valuable. We do know that, especially when it comes to prior year student data, in order to calculate growth, one of the most common factors in why we might not include a student is because the student's data is not in Aware for the previous year, because maybe they were new to your district. And so that's why I suggested to make sure that you're up to date on all your SDR requests. Domain 3, we have quite a bit of information in domain 3, so I'm really glad that we divided it out by the different tabs. And as with the other domains, you can click through and see with more detail.
Okay, so we are going to talk about how to get support for Axiom. We know that the accountability system is incredibly complex, and we want to make sure that you know exactly where to get any support that you need. We are here to walk alongside you this year to help you navigate your accountability. So the first place that you'll go is our online help guides. They have getting started documents. It also has frequently asked questions, and you can sort through there and see if you need a click sheet or a step-by-step process to work through Axiom. Those are available in our online help guides. The second place that you can get help is through our Eduphoria customer success team at support@eduphoria.net. You can send them a quick message and they can help you troubleshoot any technical difficulties that you're having with the software, or any kind of trouble that you're having with Axiom. If you feel like it's not working exactly correct, you can send them a support email and they'll respond to you promptly. We also want to make sure that you understand that you can always reach out to TEA or your local ESC for specific accountability questions. We encourage you to reach out to those two places because they are going to be able to answer any of your district's accountability questions, because they will have be able to access the reports and be able to access your number specifically for your district. Another place that you can get answers to your accountability questions is Accountability Connect with John Fezenden. He has regularly scheduled webinars and just any accountability support that you might think about. He's there. And so any of those entities would help you with your accountability questions. If you would like to make a phone call to our live support desk, you can contact us at Region 10, 972-348-1774. And you can also email us at data.solutions@region10.org. If you're interested in any training, or if you would like for us to do a webinar with your team, anything like that, Region 10 can provide that support for you. So please reach out to us when needed. The next place that you can get support throughout the summer is in the webinars that we're going to be hosting, I'm going to be hosting those here at Region 10. We're going to have some office hours. Basically, each of those dates, I will do a quick teach piece, updates on the software, show you how to click through, but it's really just open-ended for you to hop on. We can talk through your data. We can answer any questions that you have. So please join us. It'll be about an hour in the afternoon, some on Thursdays. I'm trying to do more, two dates in June and one in July and one in August as we get back to school. These are some of the topics that we'll be discussing, just like I said before, the essentials of Axiom, and then some of the teach pieces. You may want to reach out to your campus leaders and teach them about how to navigate through their accountability. So if you would like to register at bit.ly/2025 Axiom, you can register for all of the dates or just one or two. Again, I look forward to seeing you on those calls.
All right. This concludes the Axiom part of the webinar, but of course, as always, if you have any questions about anything related to our Eduphoria products, please contact training@eduphoria.net. We're happy to help you with anything. And thank you very much.